Hey, thanks for joining me. We're continuing with Stormwatch, the kind of the second tier, kind of second superheroic team from the Wildstorm universe. You know, we got Wildcats to start, and then Stormwatch comes out, um, and it's that second title that was. I kind of think of these kind of like how there was Youngblood and then Team Youngblood, and sometimes the secondary title had kind of a more consistent run, um, in a way. Like Team Youngblood, I didn't read it for very long, um, but I understand that it come out on a much more consistent basis with a more consistent, like coherent story than the regular Youngblood series. And in a way, Stormwatch kind of just it's never was as popular as Wildcats, but Wildcats was kind of all over the place. Um, it wasn't that interesting until other writers took it over, and then other writers took this whole concept and went off in other wild, crazy directions. And Stormwatch just kind of kept plugging along, doing its thing. It was just kind of fine. Never unbelievably brilliant, but not horrible. It was just kind of fine. So, but there is a big story that we're all building towards. There is something important coming up. So, issue 15, close up on the face of Guy, of I think this character's name is Sunburst. He's part of Stormwatch Prime. These kind of secondary characters that showed up in the book that we don't really care about, but they are given a lot of importance and weight in the story, which kind of is weird because we don't really like them and they don't really care about them, but whatever. But yeah, story, Ron Mars, pencils, Matt Broom. I've talked about him. He's one of those guys that just, showed up and was drawing for Wildstorm, and I kind of didn't really think much of him. I knew that he was pretty consistent on this title, but re-looking at his work, he had a lot of talent, a lot of skill. Kind of felt like he was one of those like secondary artists that, were he given the opportunity, he might have really blown up and become a bigger thing. But it didn't seem like that actually happened. I mean, he like you'll see in these pages, and I've talked about it in the previous issues that he's drawn. Like he puts in a lot of detail, a lot of rendering, a lot of work. It doesn't stand out as wholly unique. Like it's like a good version of the cliche art style you would kind of expect from an Image comic. But I kind of feel like he was on the higher end in a way. Like I don't know how to put it. There's just something about the level of detail he put into everything. Like this guy could have been a thing. I don't know whatever happened to him. I think he's off doing. Somebody told me recently in one of my other videos, like he's off doing this, but I can't remember what they said he's doing. Probably storyboarding or art direction and animation or something like that. Whatever, good for him. He did some reasonably impressive stuff. Now this story point, there's this stupid guy, this bad guy, Defile is his name, just another in a long line of these epic, giant, supposedly scary looking supervillain characters that showed up in all these books. They were in Wildstorm books, they were in the Extreme Studios books, they were in the Top Cow books. They all were supposed to carry the weight of like a Thanos or a Darkseid or something like that. Just this giant, scary, epic supervillain bad guy. And none of them, and I mean none of these guys were memorable. They were just all like boring, third-rate versions of cooler shit we've seen elsewhere. I don't remember where he comes from. He just started showing up in the book. But he's sitting there talking all scary and like, oh my gosh, we've got this. Look at this thing. They've got some kind of thing, some guy, some giant monstrous creature in a jar. And they're like, look at them. Is he not exquisite, a perfection of corruption? And they're like, oh yeah, this is awesome. And so Defile says, a fitting irony, this creature will tear asunder Stormwatch even as I begin to dismantle Emp and his wildcats from within. And so other bad guys like, all is in readiness, master, awaiting your command. He's like, then by all means, release him. So this giant monstrous thing, we're supposed to be like, this is supposed to be a big scary thing. Now, spoilers, I don't remember when or how this happened. I only remember that it did happen, and they did address it in Wildcats. But and they did cross over the stories from Wildcats and Stormwatch that this is Maul. This is the strong guy from the Wildcats team. And there is a storyline that happened when Jim Lee left art duties and gave writing duties over to, I think it was James Robinson, and Travis Charest took over. And there was this big conspiracy kind of mystery storyline going on in those Wildcats issues where it was revealed that there was a traitor amongst the Wildcats, an imposter, and it was revealed to be Maul. And so they ended up exposing him, shooting him, and it was another shape-shifting lizard thing. But then they were like, okay, but now the question is, where is the real Maul? Well, here he is. Somehow he got taken, captured, and Lord Defile is going to unleash him upon Stormwatch. And that's the mystery. I'm like, okay, sure. So that's the setup. Now we cut back to Jackson King, the leader, battalion of Stormwatch. And there's some interesting kind of drawing going on here. He's shaving, and so the artist has got to put in all these details of, running the razor on his neck. There's the sink. I kind of like this panel here. It's like the camera is like under, like the sink is full of water, and the camera is under the water looking up as he dips the razor into the water to swish it off. That's a really kind of interesting and kind of well done shot choice there. And then, a shot of Battalion. I mean, it's just a shot of his neck and his arms. He gets a towel. He's drying off his face. I feel like there's a lot of maybe Whilce Portacio layout influence going on here with the smaller panels and a lot of dead space. And I got to be honest, like some people I've heard some people say like they feel like maybe this is a cheap way out of having to draw a lot of art when you leave a lot of dead space on the panel. And you'll see more examples of that as we go through here. And I get it, but I don't know, sometimes if it's done right, it doesn't bother me. It never once stopped me in my tracks as a kid reading these going, what the hell is this? Never even occurred to me. It's only when you kind of like study comics and look at storytelling and composition and page layout and then maybe do it yourself like I do and some others that I know, where we look at this stuff and we kind of like, you start picking it apart in a way that just the average person wouldn't see. So anyway, I don't see a problem with it. It kind of makes you focus just on him because there is a silent moment coming up, as you can see. He's shaving, he rinses his face off, he dries his face with his towel, and as he looks up in the mirror and takes the towel down, now it looks like, this is the one thing that I feel like is not going well. He sees his reflection, and he's supposed to be seeing him, but just dead. Like his face is like a dead corpse. He's like, Jesus, it's me, and I'm dead. But it looks like he's seeing an alien monster rather than a rotting human skull and rotting flesh on a human skull, like a corpse. It looks alien. And so I don't think that works. Like the visual works, but it's just that he's supposed to be seeing himself dead because, as has been established in the comic, he is aware of coming in the future, about a year from now-ish. He understands that he ends up dead, and it was the whole, what was that? They did that special issue of Stormwatch a long time ago where they jumped ahead to issue, I think it was 25, and everything has just gone to hell. Stormwatch has been decimated, people are dead, the space station is blown up and on the ground, and there's this ultimate super bad guy who took over everything, and he knows it's coming, and he knows he's going to die. So he's tortured with the thought of his very soon to be impending death. So he's kind of hallucinating and freaking himself out by seeing visions of him dead in the mirror. I think that's a great story point. Like, it works well. That doesn't look like a dead human body. Looks like a lizard thing. Gotta give it to Matt Broom. Like, some of his anatomy is kind of weird. Like, it's this back 3/4 face shot. It's not perfect, but it's not terrible. And his paying attention to the shadows and the rendering on the face and all the heavy shadows and the cross-hatching lines, like, he's really putting in the detail. Like, this shoulder muscle the anatomy is like, it's kind of like generically there, but it's also really weird and super rounded off. But in terms of superhero comic book muscle anatomy, like, it's not offensive or anything. It's just kind of not right. But it also looks good. I think the coloring looks good. But yeah, Battalion, he swipes away. He's like, I can't let this happen. And he's got his head in his hands. He's like, I got to keep it together. I'm a dead man, but I don't have to start acting like one. So again, he knows that he's going to die. And it's eating away at him, like it should. And so, yeah, he's got his head in his hands. He says, I've seen the future. I know what my fate has to be. I can't let it get to me like this, though. Can't start losing it now. So he opens up a communication link with the, it's kind of like Star Trek. He's like, computer, I need to talk to so-and-so in the shop. And he's like, hey, you got some space down there? I want to go down there and tinker with my cyber suit. He's like, yeah, sure. Come on down. You feeling okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm great. I like how Broom took the opportunity. I mean, there's only 4 panels on this page. And so he took the opportunity to show Jackson, like, bent over at the sink, head in hands. He's sad, but holy Arnold Schwarzenegger bodybuilding fuck. Did he render this shit out of every possible muscle? And you know what? Like, he's super jacked. And that's fine. Most comic book characters are. And an artist will tend to draw these characters like hyper jacked in a way they don't need to be. I remember reading X-Men when Jim Lee was drawing him, and a lot of other artists after him too. But they made Magneto, for example, like super huge, super muscular. I'm like, Magneto doesn't need to have, nor would he have in his old age, giant bodybuilder proportions. And it kind of makes more sense for the leader of the field team of Stormwatch to be that big. But some characters don't need to be that big. But artists, like comic book artists, we love to draw muscles. And boy, did Broom put everything into that drawing. It's kind of ridiculous, but it also is kind of awesome. And I think the coloring works really well. So this is what I'm saying. I feel like Broom had potential. Back with the Weatherman, which is the girl. She used to be Synergy, and she was like part of the team, and now she had to take over as leader because they fired the original bald guy who was in charge. And they're referring to the previous issue where Diva and a whole crew of the Stormwatch guys went down to They went down to Earth, and they went to go investigate something in the jungle, and this bunch of cybernetic soldiers had slaughtered a village of people. And Cannon, the hothead member of the team, he was intent on hunting down the guys who did it, but not arresting them for justice, but he wanted to kill them. And Diva put a stop to it because Diva and Cannon are in a relationship. And so it was set up how they're in a relationship together, but now they're on a mission, and now they're at odds with each other. Like, you can't kill these guys. And Cannon's like, I can do whatever the fuck I want. These guys deserve death. And so Diva's actually expected to get chastised and punished for their actions. She says, we failed at our objective, and we almost crossed some lines that we had no business crossing. And the Weatherman's like, I'm aware of what happened, or what almost happened. She says, for Cannon, Hellstrike, and Strafe to have taken cold-blooded revenge against those rebels would have gone against everything Stormwatch stands for. She says, I've disciplined each of them, Cannon in particular, but I wanted to speak to you last, Diva. And so Diva, of course, is like, yeah, I expect to be punished just the same as them. But basically, the Weatherman, she tells him, you actually stood the line. You made the right choice. You acted just like the kind of leader you should have been. And I need people like you on our team. I commend you. I applaud you. You did everything right. And, you did good. Thank you for what you've done. And thank you, Matt Broom, for taking every opportunity to draw perky, pointy nipples on every girl every opportunity. Now, I don't mind that stuff, generally speaking, but sometimes it's just a little silly. these girls don't need to have perky nipples on every step of the way. But anyway, so Diva did good. So Diva goes back to talk to Cannon, her boyfriend, and kind of talk about the rift between their relationship and how they're going to make it work. This is again where I was talking about how Matt Broom, I'm assuming, was taking some influence and some visual pointers from a Whilce Portacio kind of layout, with the panels being small and a lot of dead space, and then a singular figure kind of breaking the borders. Like, this is very much, to my mind, a Portacio type layout. Now, Broom's, of course, he's not doing it as good as Portacio. That's to kind of be expected, but it's not bad. I don't mind it at all. And it kind of continues over here. It's, smaller panels, a lot of dead space. And then this one right here, like, why have a big dead space over here and not expand this panel over to here? Well, one thing you could say is that it leaves room to put the dialogue boxes off the art, so you don't have to cover the art, especially when there's a lot of text. I don't know that it's necessary to have a small panel and leave the dead space, but it's also not exactly necessary to expand the panel over. Again, when I was younger and I read this, it didn't bother me. I didn't even think about it. Didn't even cross my mind. It's only now that I'm older, looking at these from a kind of critiquing it objective perspective, I'm like, so what's the reason for that? It feels kind of unnecessary. You could have her whole face in this and still have plenty of space for the text. And again, another open panel. Like, you got one here, you got one there. Again, Portacio kind of influence. I do feel like there's some pages in here where maybe Broom was getting a little bit of a hurry. Maybe there was a time crunch, a deadline crunch. And some of the drawings start losing the intensity that some previous issues and previous pages had. And seeing some kind of his elements where he needs to grow as an artist, there's kind of a weird looking, hyper creepy, not creepy, but weird looking jawline there that doesn't look great. Her facial structure is a little weird. Like, there's some things that are kind of harder to nail down, but, it's not bad. Like, it's certainly better than a lot of other artists at the time. But, yeah, that whole scene, I guess I should say, Diva and Cannon are talking about their relationship, and he's sorry for what he did, and he has to, like, open up his heart and his feelings and kind of tell her what he really feels to kind of see if they can't salvage their relationship. Okay, whoop-de-doo. Back with Jackson King. He's down in the tech room, and he's working on his cyber suit, and he's hanging out with the guy who's like the tech guy. And while they're working on things, God damn it, what did I just say? This guy, Sunburst? This guy, he's got these goggles that he wears, which we see on the cover. These goggles are supposed to focus his optic beams, just like Cyclops in a way. They're supposed to focus them, but he's like, all they do is spread out the impact. They don't work right. You designed them, so you fix them. And so Link, the tech guy, is like, yeah, I'll fix them. So glad you asked so nicely. And so Sunburst and Battalion, there's some tension between the two of them. And Sunburst, of course, is acting like an asshole because he's always been an asshole. He blames Battalion for leaving Sunburst and his team to be kind of caught as prisoners long time ago, and they were in prison for years, and that's tension that hasn't been resolved. And so there's a lot of dialogue back and forth about how he's still pissed off at him, and Battalion keeps trying to put it off, but eventually Sunburst takes it too far. And he basically says that he's threatening to kill him and his brother. Battalion, of course, has a younger brother that's part of the team. And that was it. That was too much for Battalion. He's had enough. Speaking of art, there's a crazy, lot of detail in this low angle looking up with all this tech on the ceiling. Lots of detail going on up there. I was kind of lost a little bit in this last panel. Let me bring it up close. Well, first off, again, I don't understand what's the point of it. I don't get why. Again, Battalion's pissed off because Sunburst is talking a lot of shit, but once he basically threatens him and his brother, Jackson, Battalion, he's like, all right, I've had enough. So this last panel, you see the hand of Battalion, but I'm like, the coloring I'm like, where did his fingers go? Because it looks like these tubes of whatever. I didn't know if he's supposed to be putting them down. I guess so, because he's holding them here. So I'm guessing he's putting them down, but it doesn't look like he's putting them down. And then I'm guessing that these are supposed to be his fingers, but the coloring kind of matches the tubes of these things here. I was staring at this. I'm like, what is going on here? What is the point of showing this panel? But again, I'm guessing it must be that he's setting him down. But then the coloring, it kind of makes the hand look different from the fingers there. The fingers look like the tubes. It was weird. It threw me off. I stared at it going, what am I looking at there? It's just a little strange. And it's a little bit unnecessary. I guess the point being, again, that Jackson has these weapons in his hands or whatever, and he puts them down and bitch slaps the hell out of Sunburst. You can tell that's a shot that he was excited to do. And again, paying a lot of attention in this panel to a lot of pretty good shadows and like this extended muscular arm and the tech. And again, these broken panel borders and these like slotted panels kind of cascading to the side, a lot of white open space. It's different. It's interesting. I kind of like it, but I also now look at it, I'm just like, he's just trying to do a Portasio thing. And it's not a bad approximation. It's kind of okay. Yeah, Jackson knocks him on his ass, and Sunburst is like, all right, his eyes crackling with energy, and they start going at each other. And again, the artist, Matt Broom, has the opportunity to do a big, giant double-page spread. He starts out with the punching him in the face, kick to the face, and then a big, giant, heavily detailed shot. Again, look at all these characters. Look how hugely and over-muscled they are. Again, I get it. Comic artists love to draw big, muscular figures. It's so much more fun than drawing scrawny little guys. Like, try to imagine, I've said that Stormwatch, to me, had elements that felt like a Star Trek comic book, kind of. Like these guys on a space station beaming down to a planet, Earth, and, stopping bad guys. And it had like kind of a sci-fi Star Trek vibe to it. Imagine drawing a Star Trek comic and keeping the characters on model, just kind of slender, skinny little human beings. It's so much more boring to draw than giant muscles with all kinds of rippling, heavy, double-lighted parts of the anatomy. This is so much more fun. When you think about it in context, it's super unnecessary. No one is this jacked, but it's funner. And for kids reading this shit, it's like, it's kind of fun. Yeah, I'm kind of into this. Yeah. So Jackson's beating the piss out of him. Sunburst gets a shot in, gets an elbow to the chin, it looks like. And again, Sunburst is like, you left us for dead in Kuwait. And Jackson's like, we thought you were already dead. So as they keep going, Jackson kind of gets back on his feet and socks it to Sunburst. Now, this is where I'm like, I feel like probably Matt Broom put in so much effort and time on these pages here, these shots. This one, by comparison, is not nearly as detailed. The composition is not a fraction as good. It suddenly takes a dramatic dip in impact. He's kind of getting it in on the guy's face here, but I feel like he probably had to get through this one quicker. There's no background. There's just the energy and the excitement is not there. And so again, I probably I'm wondering if he just kind of got behind and had to like I got to knock some pages out. God, I forgot to mention inks. Trevor Scott with Chuck Gibson, Jim Lee, and Tom McWeeny. So that's interesting. I'd really be curious to know who inked what pages. Now, if you're a fan of the channel, you know that I happen to know personally Chuck Gibson. Good guy, great inker. He's worked with me. And so it's always fun to look at these books back from 94 when he was, early on in his career for Wildstorm and pages he was inking. I wish we knew who inked what. Pinup by Bobby Rubio, Jason Martin, and Robert Chong. It's kind of fine. Interesting, fun perspective on that gun coming forward, but yeah, whatever. Anyway, moving on. Of course, you got to have the obligatory shot of Hero standing triumphantly above guy who he just beat the piss out of. No backgrounds anywhere. Again, and again, we've established in this issue and previous issues, Broom can absolutely do backgrounds. This just kind of leads me to kind of feel more validated in my assumption that probably was a time crunch and I got to get through these pages. So just draw the figures, no backgrounds anywhere. But of course, he stands there and gives his speech and blah, blah, blah. I'm tough and you need to knock your shit off. Do you understand me? And of course, they kind of established when they started fighting each other in the previous pages that they weren't going to use superpowers. But of course, now that Sunburst is losing, he's going to bust out his powers and start shooting. And so Jackson uses his powers to deflect it. I do like that fist. I feel like that hand is really well drawn. But then again, this shot of Jackson leaping forward anatomically is kind of weird looking. Excuse me. Not Matt Broom's finest moment. It's kind of janky, but it works. But yeah, now they're using their powers, and now Jackson King's pissed off, so now they're going to really beat the shit out of each other. Cut to the Stormwatch crew. They've got a mission to go on. So they've all gathered, and again, this is one of those things where the artist had to take a lot of time. God damn it, Matt Broom, I'm trying to give you props here, but every fucking girl has to have pointy nipples on her titties. Every time. Look at there. And there. You know girls wear bras, right? I mean, Diva's clearly not, but we don't have to see hard nipples on every fucking girl. And he's not the only artist. Every one of them do it. I think, who's the only major artist that doesn't do it? I don't think Jim Lee does it. I don't think Jim Lee draws pointy nipples at every opportunity on these fucking drawings. Even Silvestri does it on occasion. Anyway, so there's the team. They're like, hey, down in Hawaii, there's an active volcano, and there's some kind of monster down there crawling around the volcano, and he's carrying a device that looks like a bomb. And that sucks. So we need to go down there and figure out what's going on, because that's what Stormwatch is. They're a United Nations team of characters and superheroes from multiple nations, and they all go down to do like superhero shit on behalf of the nations of the world. So that's what they're all together for. It's kind of funny because the fight between Jackson King, it doesn't really seem like it ended, but then just it flips over and there's just the fight's over because there he is. He's in his outfit and off they're going to go to fight some bad guys. So I guess the fight's over between the two of them. Not a bad spread of all the characters. You know, it's okay. I mean, there's pointy nipples everywhere, so how bad could it be? But anyway, they got to go down in the spaceship. You know, they got to go from the space station on a spaceship. I mean, they have a teleporter, but I don't know why they use that. So you do get the shot of their spaceship coming down. Now, I got to give this to Matt Broom. This spaceship that they come down on, it's a weird design, but it looks good. I think that looks kind of awesome. So rocketing down, and then they're getting ready to jump out. God damn it, Matt Broom. Fucking pointy nipples on every titty. There. Got him there. But I was like, when I got to this page, because again, I haven't read these comics in years, I'm like, oh my God, they're going to do team jumping out of the jet into battle. This Liefeld loves to do this in every issue of every comic he's ever done in the history of ever. I'm like, oh, we get the team jumping out of the jet. So they're flying along, and Jackson King, he's like, hey, you guys all jump out. I'm going to land the plane. I'll join up with you soon. So they hit the button, open up the bottom of the jet, and they all jump out. I'm surprised they're not yelling Yahoo or Bonsai or Yabba Dabba Fragga Boom or some bullshit. But they're jumping out. Again, all pretty good shots. You know, the figures are pretty solid. Good tech background. Great jet again. Like, they're jumping into battle. It's not the greatest thing, but in terms of these secondary artists that were hired on for these books, I'm kind of impressed with Matt Broom's ability. He, like I said, he could have become a bigger name if he wanted to stay in comics, but I don't think he did. But again, now we get the end of the book, giant double-page spread. There's the team standing up against Giant Monster. Now, they don't know who this is. And I don't remember from my own personal kind of recollection if I recognize this as Maul at the time, but I do. He's purple. He's got the horns on his back. But that's Maul, and I don't know why he looks like an evil alien monster. I don't remember what happened to him, but it is kind of interesting how one of like the premier characters from another book got secretly abducted and has now been turned into a monster and released onto another team who doesn't know what the hell is going on. And it just says continued, and he's holding a bomb, and it says, I read that as 29 seconds until it blows up. Yeah, that's a 29. I thought it said 23. It may not show. It looks like an... Who fucking cares? Pretty impressive shot. Like, great lighting and detail and giant use of the page, drawing big, rippling, huge fucking muscles. It's not bad. But they got to fight Maul. And again, this story was kind of addressed. I mean, obviously it has to be in Wildcats, but I've already covered those issues a long time ago. But yeah, Maul is going to fight Stormwatch. And that's the end of that issue. So it's kind of, story-wise, it's just kind of okay. It's not terrible. It's not amazing. It just is. It just, it's a comic and it's kind of fine. Artistically, it's not bad. It's just, like I've said, these books were like just kind of okay. Mid-tier stuff from Image. Not going to blow your mind. Not going to, wow you or anything, but it's not terrible, but they don't stand out as amazing. So, I don't know. It's just kind of fascinating to revisit these years later and just kind of look at them. Not bad, all things considered. Yeah. Matt Broom. I don't know that he had a reputation of being the nicest guy. I kind of heard otherwise. I don't know. Sometimes personalities clash, but I got to give it to the guy's art. Like, it's kind of impressive. Like, he has something. He's really trying. So, I don't know. That's all I got for Stormwatch 15. So, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. I'll see you next time.